Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to another week of Unique Genius in 33. I am super excited today to share our guest with you and his fabulous talent of connectedness. Now, for those of you who don't know connectedness very well yet, people exceptionally talented in the connectedness theme have faith in the links among all things. They believe there are few coincidences and that almost every event has meaning. And so with that, I would like to welcome Tagg to the panel today, being our perfect guest for connectedness. And Taylor, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about you and what you do, and make sure you share your top 5 with us, please.
Well, thanks, Joe. I appreciate you having me today, and it's great to be with you. And just my top 5 right off the bat are: number 1 is connectedness while we're here. Number 2 is strategic. Then number 3 is relator. Number 4 is achiever, and number 5 is intellection. So there you have it.
Like that.
Again, my name is Taylor Tagg, and I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I work currently for the City of Memphis in the Office of Business Diversity and Compliance, and I help people who want to start businesses grow. And I'm also a teacher as well. So I teach soft skills and then life skills on top of that. And just being able to help people improve and to grow, that's my mission in life. And so I'm happy to be here. And I know that Strength Finder and Strength Genius is just a beautiful kind of segue into soft skills and life skills, and a big part of understanding yourself. And that's why I was here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you've got the perfect sort of talent set to really maximize each one of those to do what you do. Right. And especially that connectedness, I can just hear it, oozing through your description of what you do and why you do it.
Big team builder. I love to bring people together. And so you're right. Connectedness is part of that, seeing the big picture and understanding how we fit together. And I guess I'm decent at that. That's my number 1. So I'm pretty good at it. I don't know.
It's all right. You don't have to humble brag. You can just say you're good at it. We like that here. So I am going to share with you now, Taylor, a few times we always share a celebrate and evaluate for each talent. And so for connectedness today, our celebration of connectedness is that you trust your inner wisdom. You have a natural compassion for all living things. You're a bridge builder and you desire to be a part of something bigger. How does that sound to you? Does that feel like it's correct and resonates with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like that's a perfect, good definition of it. I guess for people like me, you got this connectedness thing. It's like everything happens for a reason. There is purpose in what we do, and we are able to kind of connect the dots between the lines. And it doesn't mean we have all the answers, but it does mean that we kind of can see the big picture and work towards connecting the dots. So yeah, what you're saying there is right on line with the value there.
With what you feel. Awesome. Fantastic. Now, of course, we know that every talent has a potential to go potentially a little bit raw, right? If we're not in the strength zone, we're just in talent, we might be a little raw or need a little help modifying what we're doing. And so some questions we can kind of ask ourselves to keep in check, to evaluate, am I coming off as naive? Am I waiting for a sign instead of taking action? Are my personal boundaries blurring? Am I leaving too many things to fate? So are those questions you feel like you might want to ask yourself sometimes?
Yeah, and I think there, with the connectedness, there's the waiting thing is really important, because sometimes we're kind of seeing how things are connected and we're waiting faithfully for an answer, and sometimes we wait too long. And so it's having a nice balance between giving time for the right answer to come and then taking action when action is needed. So there's a balance there that connectedness has to strike between waiting too long and being able to actually take action and do something when you feel it's right.
Exactly, like waiting for that right moment, that right person, that right whatever it is you feel like you need to make the whole thing work. And it's another way that procrastination can set in, where people don't often think of connectedness as a talent that has a procrastinating tendency, right?
Right. Something else that you mentioned, Joe, as well is boundaries.
Right.
I think because connectedness is such a big picture at times, is that my personal boundaries can be blurred and not knowing and establishing where my personal boundaries lie.
Yeah.
So I think a person with this connectedness has to really be aware of their boundaries and make sure they're firmly established, because at times you can allow people to kind of run over you, and that's not great. But again, you have to kind of establish that for yourself. That's something I've had to learn over time.
Sure. And I have connectedness at number 8, so I can resonate with some of this with you. And I think boundaries is definitely something I've worked on as well over the years. So thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. Your insights are super appreciated. So the next thing I want to ask, we always start and go in this order. What is it that you love about your connectedness? How does it serve you or bring you joy?
Well, I think, for me, connectedness to me is that's understanding that there is a larger picture, and that everyone is connected. That's how I see things. That's how I feel things. That's how I sense things. And I was told as a young man that we're, as human beings, all connected. All of life is actually connected. And I had to kind of discover that for myself. I really asked myself, is that true? Right. And so I began searching for those answers. And the more that I searched for connections with not only human beings, but just all of life, the more I found those connections. And to the point where it's a sense, it's a knowing, it's an understanding. You can't necessarily always quantify it or provide all this beautiful evidence of connectedness, but it's there. It's what I call it like an invisible tether. They were all kind of invisibly tethered together. If you think about a cell phone connection, and you're connected to the other person, but you don't see the connection to your cell phone, but it's there. That's how I kind of see how we are connected with this invisible tether we're all kind of connected to. Yeah,
I love that analogy. I think that's great. Might steal that invisible tether line from you, because I think that's fantastic. So there's always the flip side, right? So is there anything about connectedness that can maybe drive you a little nuts, or that maybe isn't always your favorite thing? I don't like to say hate about it, because it's not that. It's just that little thing that you're like, oh.
Right. So with this connectedness, it's easy to get frustrated when you're having conversations with other people and trying to establish relationships. It's like, don't you see how this is connected? Don't you see the big picture here? And not all people have that strength. They have other strengths that naturally fit them. And so there's that frustration that you have to explain this connectedness thing. People don't know it.
Right.
So sometimes you have to explain it. And I don't really get frustrated with that. It's maybe a little irritation.
Sure.
But I think in my life, I've been able to develop patience, which I didn't actually have. I had to develop that. So that patience helps me to be able to explain myself when it doesn't make sense.
Sure. And I would think, because you mentioned another great phrase that I really liked, is that with connectedness, there's a real, just sort of an innate knowing. There's like this thing that you just know, and it's not necessarily quantifiable. Right. And so I would imagine that's where that's getting, is like, oh, if I could just put words to what I see, right, or what I do. And
yeah, that's true. It's just it's hard to even describe. It's just a kind of an understanding that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to work out. There may be a reason for why the situation is happening right now.
Right.
And you walk down Faith Street at the same time. You have faith that things will work out the way they're supposed to work out. Maybe not the way I wanted it to work out, but that things will work out the way they're supposed to, and being okay with that.
Sure. Fantastic description. So how young were you, or how young can you remember this showing up in your life, even before you knew what talents were? Can you recognize some of the patterns in your youth?
Yeah, I think, it goes back, to me going to church as a young boy. I had an uncle who was a Catholic priest, and he always used to say we're all connected. And it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because I thought, well, I'm just a separate human being, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and everybody else is doing what they're doing. But the more he said it, the more I had to begin to discover whether or not that was true and ask the question, are we really connected? And so, like I said, the more evidence that I believe that I found that we were connected, just in the way things worked out, letting things kind of do what they're going to do to come to fruition without trying to make things happen too much. And again, striking a balance between allowing things and taking action. The more that I found that we were all connected, and that I did feel a good sense of that. I can give you a good example of that if you
please
share that. So about a year ago, I donated a kidney to a good friend's son who needed the kidney. And it worked out where I was going to donate directly to this young man. And we got to about a week before the surgery, and everything fell apart. They canceled the surgery. Everything just, it wasn't going to happen.
Wow.
And so I didn't really know what to do after that. I had committed myself, mind, body, and spirit to giving this kidney, and had done everything except give the kidney. So I thought, what do I need to do from here? So I sat on for 3 weeks. And then I went to the hospital here in my hometown of Memphis, and I was going to donate this kidney in New York. And I just said, there was something that just told me to go ahead and keep myself open to the possibility. So I went to my hometown hospital and I said, this surgery did not work out, but if somebody else can use my kidney, I'm willing to donate it. Well, about 6 months later, that came to fruition. And what I didn't realize at the time is I donated to an unknown person. I still don't know who got my kidney. What happened is because of that donation, because I donated to an unknown person, that kicked off like a series of events that allowed my friend's son to actually get a kidney of his own about 3 months after my donation. And I didn't know any of that prior to that happening. So it was just a beautiful story of how things are connected. And it was just an example of just keeping faith that I'm trying to do the right thing and I'm still willing, and beautiful things happen because of it.
Wow, that is super powerful. And what a great example of connectedness. It's hard to imagine a better story about connectedness right there.
Yeah, I just got this sense that there was a larger picture here that I couldn't see. And I just kept the faith that I was still supposed to go ahead with this, even when all the doctors said pretty much it's not going to happen. And so,
so one door opened, right? But then it slammed shut.
One door closed, another one opened, but I was still open.
Had that first door not opened, you may still have both your kidneys.
Well, that's true.
Right? I mean, like, if that, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean, like, if that one door hadn't opened, so maybe it wasn't meant for that child, but that was what got you into the place you needed to be to make that happen, right? That's that connectedness piece right there of, wow, look at
what I realized later in this whole connectedness piece was that it would have been great for me to donate to my friend's son directly, and that would have been great. I would have helped one person. What ended up happening is because the surgery was canceled, I was still able to get my friend's son a kidney, but I was the anchor of what you call a kidney exchange. So 5 other people got kidneys as well throughout this whole story.
Wow.
So that's just a beautiful example of connectedness and seeing this bigger picture that you don't necessarily quite understand, but you realize that you just continue to walk the path, things will end up working out.
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic. Whew. It gives me a little, what we call chicken skin here in Lima, Peru. Piel de gallina. So fantastic. So with connectedness, obviously every talent can have people who don't necessarily understand our talents because they don't have it, right? And our talents can tend to be filters of how we see the world and how we see others. So what would you want other people to know who don't have connectedness, what connectedness really is, and what would make their understanding of the talent easier?
Yeah, again, I think in dealing with this, it's not necessarily that you can see everything that's coming,
right?
But you just have a faith that what's supposed to work out will work out to your advantage somehow, some way. Even if it may take time, it may take effort, it may take going through some difficult adversity. And I'm person that likes to turn adversity to advantage. But there's this understanding that if you just stay the course, if you continue to walk down the road, if you just continue to see it through, that things will work out. And I think most of us in our life, we've dealt with some significant adversity, but we just continue to walk the path, and things have a way of just falling into place when they're supposed to. And I think that's really the thing with connectedness, is just allowing things to happen when they're supposed to happen, not necessarily when we want them to happen.
Right. So I think for other people, right, then what you're saying is it would be really good for other people to understand that connectedness isn't necessarily being flighty or, you know, being too like, well, whatever. It's not just that. It's not that we don't have a desire. It's not that we don't want to take action. It's that there's just something really deep within us that knows not taking action right now is possibly the best thing we can do until we see what's coming, or that we just have a feeling that it'll work out. Right. So, but it's not a flightiness, or, you know, kind of a blind, what I would call a blind faith, maybe.
No, it's not blind faith. That there's actually concrete things that happen that allow us to connect the dots. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to be able to connect the dots, right?
Sure.
So it's just a patience in letting things unfold, and maybe not having all the answers, but knowing that there's a larger picture in play that maybe we can't see, that's in play here, that we just need to kind of stay on course.
Right. And do you think, we chatted a little bit about this yesterday, about how there are people out there who just really don't get connectedness. And we sort of brought up this idea of how, you know, I'd been sort of looking for connection a lot in my life, sort of throughout my life. I mean, I had my family, I had my friends, but there's like this deeper needing to belong. And the way we keep going in our society is with our technology and our ever busier schedules and everything that we're doing, that there's this, it can be difficult for some people to even see the connectedness piece, because things just kind of keep pushing us apart, even when they're supposed to bring us together, right?
Yeah, and that's true. And we again talked about, you know, everything that's available to us in technology and social media now, and that, you know, we're seeing more people than, you know, we have in the past, because we're open to each other online, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're more connected. That actually can disconnect us more, in that we have maybe a surface relationship with somebody, but we don't take the time to get to know someone in a deeper way. And I think that's, again, what connectedness is about. You know, for me, I think I've had an issue with that, is just I had to take the time to connect with people. And that's not necessarily just online or through social media, but have a good conversation. Listen. You know, again, we talk about communication skills, and really listening is one of the key things that we can do in being a good communicator. Is listening to what they say, being present, and just being connected with them on a face-to-face or person-to-person level.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree with that. So, fun question. We kind of had some fun with this yesterday. We were chit-chatting too. Who is a famous person or a fictional character that you can think of that kind of embodies what you believe and feel about connectedness?
Well, that's a great question. And that took me some time to think about and come up with. But again, you know, being from Memphis, Tennessee, we know that Dr. Martin Luther King was a beautiful person. He ended up dying here, but he also did a lot of good here as well. And so I think he demonstrates a great person and champion of connectedness, in that he was trying to get all people to come together in a very difficult time in this country, of people feeling very disconnected and wanting to be very separate from each other. And I'll give you a beautiful quote that he wrote down in a Birmingham jail cell about connection. He said, "In a real sense, all of life is interrelated. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be." This is the structure of reality. I think that's just sums up what we're talking
Wow.
about here.
Yeah, if he didn't have connectedness number one, I don't know who would.
Right.
Honestly,
I've got to give my best for you to give your best, Joe, and vice versa. You've got to give your best for me to be my best. And I think that's a beautiful example of what connectedness is all about.
Well, it's a beautiful example of strengths as well. I mean, it's obviously fantastic of connectedness, but just even of strengths, what you just said, like, you've got to be at your best. I've got to be at my best. Mother Teresa said something very similar of, there are things that I can do that you can't do. There are things that you can do that I can't do, but together we can do great things. Right. And so
Absolutely.
Being able to put all that together, I think that's fantastic. Wow. I'm going to have to go look up that quote now, because that is just a beautiful, beautiful quote for connectedness. I know Sherry's like writing it down,
Right.
taking notes.
I'm a Mother Teresa fan, by the way, too. Love her work.
Well, and something I thought about, so when we were brainstorming this a little bit yesterday on the fictional people, the other two people that came to my mind were Diane Fossey and Dr. Jane Goodall, and their work with chimpanzees, and just that belief across species and all living things, and how we're more alike than we're different, and these different things that keep coming up. So while it wasn't just humanity, right, it was just about all life and how we're connected and how we should be able to coexist in a better way. And so those were also people that kind of came to mind for me that I think would probably have had connectedness at some level.
Yeah, and that's a great example, because I think in my life, as I learned and I grew, I was looking at connectedness from a human perspective, but then I began to expand that to all of life, and how we're connected. You think about how the universe works, and how everything, all the planets they're rotating on a planned basis. There's some structure to life. You think about the birds in the air, and how bees pollinate the flowers, to be able to create food, and how that's connected to, our ability to eat. It's just there's just all this beautiful togetherness in all of life that's really important. Even to the fact now that I can't squash an insect. I have to pick the insect up and take it outside and let it go now. Where most people would just squash the thing and be done with it. Because I've got this connection, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Nope. If I see it, I'm like, oh, okay, you just go over that way. I'll go over my way, no problem. Yeah, I feel very much the same way. So, Sherry, did you have anything you'd like to ask before we start wrapping up?
I do. Thank you. I do. And it looks like we might have a couple phone callers too. If they want to unmute themselves, they can. But I was thinking about this because I work with two people right now that have connectedness in their top two. And it's interesting because connectedness for me is like 13 or 14. So it's really, I reach down and use it when I need it. And it supports, I lead with strategic and achiever. It supports what I'm going to get done, or it supports my people skills, like my relator and my learner. And I use those for more when I'm with people. So when you were saying not taking action, being patient, I am always working on this. And I do believe, I believe in the bigger picture that we also get blessed with people in our paths, with people who will compliment us, but also things are sent to us to refine us, right? So for me, one of my friends, in fact, we sat down the other day, we're working on a big event that I'm emceeing tomorrow, and he has connectedness number one, and or ideation number one, and then connectedness, or anyway, ideation and connectedness together, no matter one or two. And he's like, Sherry, when I put things down, it just seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Isn't it that way for you? And I'm like, no, for me, it's you tell me what you want, and it gets smaller, 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 so we can get it done by tomorrow. So now it's not that I can't think that big, but I was in another workshop where she called it chunking up or chunking down. We're either better at chunking it up, or we're better at chunking it down, to really put it simplistically. So I'm better at chunking down. My question is, Taylor, when people are working with you and with your teams, and because you're in a setting where, you have to work with politicians and lots of agendas, how do you know when to listen and of when to take action. Because I know you said, please be patient, because somebody with connectedness is thinking it all the way through. But how do you know when you should take action then, when other people are saying, Taylor, we need to take action? Where is that? And then how can I approach that maybe in a kinder, gentler way?
That's a $1 million question you're asking, Sherry. I don't know if there is a right time to take action. Luckily, I've got Achiever in my top 5, so actually I do know to take action. But I think, especially when you're in a team environment and you've got a person with connectedness, you know that they're going to have maybe a big idea or expansive big picture, and so you use that person for their strengths, to come up with a big picture. But maybe it's a situation where you, as a detail-oriented person, know when to take over that idea and chunk it down to where it's manageable for other people. I don't. I go by feel with everything. So I'm feeling my way into when to take action. And I know that's kind of a touchy-feely thing for a lot of people. But for me, that's how I synthesize things. So I'm feeling for the right time to do something, but knowing that sometimes I do need to be patient. And I will listen. I will listen first to a conversation and always speak second. To me, that's good communication. But that's how I approach it. I listen, talk about the options, then say, hey, what about this? Do we need to move in this direction? What's your opinion? Where do we need to go from here? Let's take some action after talking about these big, huge ideas.
Okay. Because, I was thinking of this one gentleman in particular, because, again, yes, connectedness and ideation. Now, we have a jovial relationship. So I'll often say on his 6th idea of the conversation in 12 minutes that I love you. And so I'm just going to ask you, which one, if you had to take action today on one of these, which one should we aim it at? Which one do you want me to help you with? So we've got a good relationship. And same thing with Lori. She has it as well. And she's my business partner. I think we have, worked it out, which I love the language of strengths, because we know each other now, and her connectedness. And again, my connectedness supports either my strategy or my people, my relationships. So I dig down and use it when I need it. But again, it's more about chunking down, as you said, instead of chunking up. So with your teams, do you let them know that then? Have you let them know that, this is the way you think, or how have you managed that in terms of communicating with them? Yeah,
so I think in a team environment, it's beautiful for everyone to know each other's strengths. And if you don't know your team's strengths, let's figure that out. Let's take the Strength Finder and figure out what everybody's at least number 1 and number 2 is, so that if I'm this connectedness person, and also my number 2 is strategic, and I'm going to be thinking big picture for the most part, and I may involve myself in some details, but maybe all the times that's not going to be the case. So maybe as a team member, Sherry, you're the person that can take that ball and roll with it. And if we know each other's strengths, then we really can work together on a much higher level. And I'm a proponent of all team members, kind of understanding how we function. That's why we need each other to get it done. We can't do it by ourselves. I talk with a lot of business owners every day, and they throw around 4 or 5 different businesses they want to get into. And I was like, choose one. Choose one. Let's work it. If it's successful, we'll go to number 2, but we're going to work number 1 until we can't work it anymore.
Right.
Yeah, your strategic and Achiever really support your connectedness. That's awesome. Well, I won't ask any more questions. There might be some other people. I see people on the phone. So, but thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. I appreciate that. So I'm going to ask my final question. If anybody else has another question, they can pop it in the chat, or just let me know that they raise their hand. They want to make a question real quick. We've got just about 4 minutes left here. but you started to allude to this when we first got on the call, and I want to give you a chance. What do you love about strengths? What do you wish someone knew about strengths that hasn't taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment yet?
Yeah, I think I like the fact that you really can find out some good information about yourself through this process, and things that you don't even realize. We think we kind of know ourselves pretty well, but there's just so many things to discover through taking the Strength Finder and figuring out this process. And the thing that I love about Connectedness again is that I feel like we all are connected, and that's how I see life. And I see that from a big picture perspective, and to know that we're really not separate from each other. We need each other to make teams work, to make life work. And that's all part of being a good team player and being a good bridge builder and bringing some comfort to other people as well. That's what I do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Taylor. I really sincerely appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today and to let us know all about your connectedness. What a super powerful story that you shared with us about the donation of your kidney and the chain of events that incurred. Just super, wow, super excited to have been able to meet you at least this way, and hope to meet you in person someday among one of these moments. And Sherry, thank you for being on here and for participating, asking your questions and sharing your experience as well. And for everybody else who joined us, I'd like to leave you today now letting you know that obviously every week we're here talking about another talent, getting into a little bit of a deep dive and seeing how people are really using their talents in real life. I hope you'll join us next week as well. Also, we've just started our big deep dive series on our new 1-minute podcasts. You can check us out by saying, Alexa, play the Strong Communities briefing. And if you don't have an Alexa, that's okay. Don't worry. You can go to strongcommunities.podbean.com. That's podbean.com. And you can subscribe to listen to our podcast whenever you like. They're just a minute or a little bit longer every day. This week we're covering Achiever, and we're now looking at talents as they're raw, how they look refined, what they look like in family, parenting, and community aspects, the contributions of the talent, the triggers of the talent, what might drive it a little bit crazy. And also we'll be sharing anecdotes with people from our community on what that talent looks like for them. So I hope you'll join us and start tuning in there. And we will look forward to seeing you next week right here on Unique Genius in 33. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you.